Can y'all hear? We good? All right, if everybody go ahead and come on in, we'll try to begin on time, and that way we can end on time. I know we have more than that out in the hall, so we'll wait just a moment. So I hope everybody's doing well. We'll go ahead and make our introduction and proceed from there. I was okay with this until I got the official just a moment ago, and I see it says charitable giving and legacy planning ideas for senior Christians. So he did not mention that to me in our discussion, Dave. I'm afraid that might have scared a few of us off. But we're certainly privileged today to have Dave Hogan with us. Dave is a certified professional planner, and he currently lives in Mount Dora, down in Central Florida, near Ocala, in that area. So he's here to visit with us and do a topic on making your money matter, techniques for smarter charitable giving. Dave has a long history of working in this industry. He has degrees from Freed, degrees from Memphis University, and also, which we'll hear tomorrow, the University of Ohio. But he has spent several years working in Abilene for the church, for the university there, and has also been connected with Faulkner. And for the last 10 years, he's been down at Mount Dora, facilitating the development program that they do in order to fund the program that they have, the Mount Dora Christian Homes. It's I think gone for different names, but now they have a large campus Christian school. Joan and I had the privilege of going down in the spring. Beautiful, beautiful campus of about 800 students. They use that to incorporate their ministry involving family, trying to increase and improve family dynamics, and do a lot of people that would not be served otherwise. Had great success doing that. Been working in this kind of program for over 40 years, and have developed techniques in order to maximize the returns of that, as we know, in such a needed facility. So we're here. We had a privilege of going out and having dinner with them last night. Learned a little bit about them. Him and Kathy, his wife, have been married for about 48 years. They have a couple of girls, one in North Carolina, one in Texas, and one granddaughter. So Dave enjoys doing a lot of stuff. They enjoy going to the beach and spending time with family, of course, and he's also an enthusiast for electric bike riding. So, in fact, so much so that he's written a book. I'm sure that he'll be glad to talk to you about that, well, it has the name here, so this is a mouthful. E-bikes, putting the fun back into cycling and life at any age. So he's got some bike trips lined up, so I'm quite sure that if you go out and stand by your mailbox, sooner or later, Dave may be coming by. So just as we say in business, the check's in the mail, so just go by and wait for it. So, but Dave, it's a privilege to have you with us, and we'll go ahead and get started. Dave Hogan.
Thank you, Joel. Appreciate the introduction. And after that introduction, why don't we just talk about e-bikes today instead of, yeah, e-bikes are a lot of fun. I've been into cycling most of my life, but the electric bikes have, particularly at this age, just make it a lot more enjoyable. I can ride longer and further. And yeah, in recent years, I've been as far as Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and Lake Michigan, and even Netherlands. Did a 5-day bike tour across the Netherlands. So a lot of fun. Bikes are a great hobby and a great way to see nature too as you go out in the beautiful trails. I'm actually going to be back in Alabama, bike trail, and I'll get back to the topic after this. But since you opened the door, anybody familiar with the Chief Ladiga Trail? It goes from the Georgia state line over to Anniston, and then from Georgia state line it goes to Smyrna. So it's about a 100-mile paved path through there. So I'm going to tackle that in late April. So I'm looking forward to that. Be one of the few overnight kind of trips I've done, where you carry your stuff with you and ride. So it'll be fun anyway. But it's a real pleasure and honor to be here today, be part of this presentation. How many, I know most of you here, I assume, are from College Avenue Church, and I thank the elders of the congregation here for inviting me to come, and Joel played a big role in sort of the logistics and setting this up. How many of you, anybody here from another church? If so, which one? Christian Home. Christian Home, okay, good. Okay. Anybody else that we missed? And how about the camp? I think there's someone here from the camp, right? Okay, that's Camp Wiregrass, is that the right name? Okay, and of course the Academy, Wiregrass Christian Academy is part of the church here, right? And so some of you may have interest there. So there's a lot of good brotherhood nonprofits and congregations just right here in our immediate area. Everything we're going to say today will be applicable to wherever you give charitable money to, donations to, as long as it's a qualified, 501c3 charity, registered with the government. All the techniques we're going to talk about today will work. So you don't have to give it all to Mount Dora Children's Home. So it doesn't matter who you give it to in terms of it working tax-wise. I've been with Mount Dora for about, as Joe said, about 11 years now, actually. And it's a wonderful ministry down in Central Florida. We're about an hour north of Orlando. And we've served children and families since 1945. As Joel said, we're a little bit unique in the brotherhood that we have an academy and a children's home on the same campus together. And so that model has worked out well for us. I'm not here today, though, to talk about electric bikes or Mount Dora Children's Home. So I'll move past both of those topics. But I'd be glad to talk about either of those with you later, if you like. I will be talking, though, tomorrow morning. For those of you from Orange Avenue is our home church down in Florida. Those of you from College Avenue here, I'll be speaking at the Sunday school hour tomorrow morning about the Children's Home Ministry. And so I hope you'll come back if you're able and be with us at that time for that topic. You can also learn more about the Children's Home just on our website. You can probably just type in on your web browser Mount Dora Children's Home, but the actual website address is just mdchome.org. So we'd love to have it. And I've talked to some of you about, visits to campus, either individually or as groups. Had some, one-on-one conversations with folks. We always love to have visitors. So if you want to come down sometime, again, we're near Orlando. It's a pretty part of the state anyway. Just be sure to call me or call one of our officers first to schedule it so we can show you around, more properly. I was talking to someone, an unfortunate thing about today's world we live in. I know churches face this, everybody does, schools, but we have to have a lot of security now. In the old days, church people were kind of accustomed to just showing up on campus and walking around on their own and walking into buildings. You can't do that now. You'll be stopped by one of our security officers. And all the buildings are locked during the day. Those of you who work in schools, you understand that, right? So we have to do that to protect our children in today's world. So it is best to call ahead, make an appointment with us, and we'll be happy to have someone that will show you around the campus and talk to you about what we do there. But anyway, moving past that, how many of you, we're going to talk about charitable giving today. How many of you would be interested in learning about some ways that you could be generous with your giving, but also save maybe hundreds, possibly even thousands of dollars each year in your taxes? Would that be appealing to anybody? Yeah, okay. So there are some techniques that will help you to do that. We're blessed to live in a time or live in a nation where our tax code, our government policy, approved by Congress, encourages charitable giving. And so that's a good thing. So there are provisions in the IRS code that say, well, normally we tax you for doing this or that, but instead of taxing you, if you'll give the money to charity, you get a break. And so we'll talk about some of those as we go through today. You know, in church circles, we talk a lot about the why to give, right? You know, the motivation for giving, what the Bible says about being generous and, helping others. And that's all very good. Of course, that's the foundation for why we do what we do. But in church circles, we don't talk a lot about the how. How exactly do you give? How's the best way to give? The best techniques to use to give. And of course, that's going to change with the country you live in and the culture you're in. But today's talk is going to be not about the why. I think most of us are mature Christian people, we understand the whys, but we're going to talk about the how to give. And I think you'll find it of value and interest. I think most of us are motivated to give, and we want to use whatever resources God has given us. You know, some of us have been given a lot, some have been given a little, but we all have assets, we have money at some level, and we want to be good stewards, right? We want to be a blessing to others with the money we have. And so we're going to talk today about how to do that in the most effective, efficient manner possible. Let's see, we got our slides to work here. There we go. Okay. It's my hope that each of you today will walk away with one or more actionable ideas, something you can take home with you. And I'm going to encourage you at different points during the program to use your handout and maybe write in the margins or write down some ideas that you can talk about at home. But I know that not everything I say today is going to apply to everybody. You may say, well, that's a nice idea if I had umpteen amount of money to pay. I don't have big amounts of money. Well, trust me, hang on, there will be ideas that apply to you too. So there's something here for everyone. And if each of you can take home one idea and actually make a change based on what we talked about, I will feel like today's been extremely, time well spent. Okay? You with me? All right. Thanks. As we age and mature, our priorities about money change, right? It's been a long time since I've been a young couple like that. Kathy and I looked like that one time, didn't we, Kathy? I think, but long time back. And when you're young, starting out, you're nesting, you're growing, you're building, you're starting from nothing pretty much, and you need pretty much all of your resources, all of your income, just to keep shoes on the kids and to buy furniture and appliances and houses and cars, all that stuff, right? That's so important, particularly when you're a young adult and just starting out. But as we go through the life cycles, kids get out of the nest, we begin to look toward retirement, or maybe we're already retired, or later in life, that kind of buying doesn't appeal to us as much. I don't know about you, but other than maybe replacing a mattress or something, I mean, how many times, in our age group, do we go into furniture stores anymore? I mean, we just don't do that kind of shopping as much, maybe some, but, in this stage of life. And so our priorities change toward money. Our thoughts about what to do with our money change. And one thing that becomes a higher priority typically later in life is giving. We want to be generous. We want to help others. We know God has blessed us. In most cases, we've been blessed way more abundantly than we feel maybe we deserve or expected. And I know, maybe not true for everybody, but I know myself, and a lot of us can probably say this, we look back on our parents or grandparents and we see that we've been blessed way more than they have. We've been fortunate to live in a good generation, of prosperity for our country and world, and we have all benefited from that. So giving becomes a higher priority for us as we age. And besides, giving is something that we want to do that we get satisfaction from. I love this quote from Dave Ramsey. Most of you probably know who Dave Ramsey is, right? The kind of personal finance guru guy that has radio shows and all this, gets people to tear up their credit cards. You know him? That Dave Ramsey. Well, he has this quote that I love called, "Giving is the most fun you can have with your money." And, I think those of us, again, who are more mature really get this. We understand what Dave is saying. And because there's a lot of things we can do with our money. And sure, there is some fun and satisfaction in buying stuff. Like, we have a saying since Joel introduced the e-bike idea here, with electric bikes, and this is probably true of a lot of hobbies, yeah, but people say, how many e-bikes should you have? How many bicycles, period, should you have? And there's a formula, N+1, you have 1 being the number you have now, so it's kind of like 1 more than what you have now, and it never ends. So, we do like to buy stuff, even at this age, don't we? We have hobbies and things that we enjoy spending on, but really, for the most part, we get a lot more satisfaction from helping others. Now, it might be just helping our children, right, or our grandchildren. I bet most of us who have children, grown children and grandchildren, are still helping them at least at some level financially, right? Even if they don't necessarily need it, we want to. We want to help. We want to buy the grandkids new stuff or new clothes, whatever, just because we can and we love them and we want to help, right? But also that giving at this stage of life, plays out into helping, wanting to be of more generous help toward our churches that we attend, toward good brotherhood causes, whether it be a camp, a Christian camp that does a world of good for young people, to a Christian academy or a children's home like where I work, a university, a Christian university like Faulkner down the road, all sorts of good causes. But we want to be generous, don't we? We want to help. And so I think we understand the Dave Ramsey concept of giving being the most fun you can have with your money. The Bible says a lot about giving, so it must be important. Now, I haven't added these numbers up, but someone said that about 2,300 verses in the Bible talk about money, generosity, our attitude toward money, warnings about money, and that's more than all the verses in the Bible that talk about faith and prayer combined. So, to God and to the Holy Spirit, what we do with our money, our attitude to our money, apparently is important. And so we want to take that seriously. And I think most of us want to do that. This is a familiar verse to many of us from the book of Acts, where it says, it is more blessed to give than to receive. And again, I think that's another one of those concepts that we just, as we age, we maybe appreciate in a deeper way. We know the satisfaction that we get inside from sharing what we have with others and helping others. I live in Central Florida, and we are known as a retirement area. There's a lot of retired people. Anybody heard the Villages? It's the world's largest retirement community. Around 150,000 people, I think, currently all age 55 plus, that live in the Villages, and it's growing like crazy. So we have lots of retired people in our part of the state. So we have lots of estate sales. And going to estate sales is kind of a weird thing when you think about it. People, because people come to Central Florida to retire, maybe in their 60s, they're healthy, they're good, but, they stay there long enough, eventually they pass along and they leave an estate. And so other people go and walk through their house, walk through their yards, and look through all the stuff that they've accumulated over the years. It's kind of a weird thing when you think about it, but, we're all familiar with estate sales. This is stuff that was important to somebody at one time, right, that they acquired. They bought, they used their income to buy, and now it's being sorted through by strangers who don't even know them and being bought pennies on the dollar. So it's a sobering thought that, really, we try to hold on to what we have, but really it's just ours for a while, right? We're stewards of our money. The possessions we have, no matter how precious they are to us, we can't keep them. And eventually everything we own is going to be in someone else's hands. Someday, those estate sales could be for some of us. This verse from Job, kind of hits on that same point where, Job says, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked will I would depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. The old saying that you never see a U-Haul truck following a hearse, because you can't take it with you. Back in Egypt or some, the pharaohs used to try to put stuff in the tombs there with them, hoping they could take it to the next, the afterlife. But we know in reality, that stuff is still there, isn't it? In the same place that they put it. It didn't go with them. And so we can't take our possessions with us either. And here's an interesting thought. This figure of money is really big, $68 trillion. You know what that is? It's not the federal budget or even the federal deficit. It's bigger than either of those. This is the amount of money that they say our generation, talking to the baby boomers at least in the audience, some of you aren't there yet as baby boomers, but for those in our generation, that's how much we're going to pass to the next generation. So for those of you younger, they're going, yeah, that's good. But that's a huge amount of money. And it's more than any previous generation has ever passed on to the next generation. We are a wealthy generation as a whole. And even those of us who think, well, I'm not wealthy, yeah, but we're still pretty well off compared to past generations, aren't we? And so $68 trillion is going to pass. So we have enjoyed a lot of prosperity in our time on earth. And look at all the change we've seen, in terms of standard of living. When I was a kid, I know a lot of you can relate to this. I remember when my parents brought home the first, TV set. That was a big deal. Now, it had a big cabinet and a tiny little screen. Remember those sets? A little black and white screen that you could get maybe 3 channels for, that go off at midnight. But that was a big deal. In fact, I remember neighborhood kids coming over just to watch our TV set because they didn't have one yet in their home. Now, we wouldn't stand for that set in our home, would we? We wouldn't take a black and white set. We want 55, 60, 65-inch, big flat screen TVs mounted up on the wall, and probably more than one in the house somewhere, right? I was in somebody's house, an elder from a church, happened to be another location, but went to use the restroom, and sure enough, there right across from the toilet was a TV screen. That was interesting, but so they could watch TV in there. But so we love our TV sets, but we have seen a lot of change, haven't we? How about air conditioning? How many of you grew up in a home that wasn't air conditioned? I did. Yeah, remember those sweaty, hot summer nights? And, the fans we had going, and then we got room air conditioners, and then eventually central air. We live in a great time materially, don't we? All the things that we just assume and take for granted that our parents never had. Now, of course, air conditioning in cars, we remember those summer vacations, don't we? With the windows down in the car and the wind blowing and we're all sweating anyway. We remember those days before air conditioning in cars. And what may be the greatest invention of all time, the greatest invention ever, or remote control for TV sets, or remote control switch. You don't even have to get out of your chair. You can just sit there in your lazy boy chair and change the channels across the room on the TV set. Isn't that, what a country, right? So we live in beautiful times. But that begs the question, okay, so we live in a wealthy generation. We have assets under our control. Everybody, by the way, has an estate. Maybe yours may be bigger or smaller than someone else's, but we all have an estate. So that begs the question of how can we best honor God, serve His church, and love our neighbor with the money and assets that are under our temporary control? That's a good question to think about, isn't it? We've got all this stuff. We're going to pass it to someone else. We can't take it to heaven with us. And so what happens to it, and what should we do? And so there's kind of 2 ways to break this question down. And the first one is, how can I best support the Lord's kingdom and any other charitable causes you want to throw in there? I really encourage Christians to think first about giving to the kingdom. And again, that can be local church. That can be Christian universities, children's homes, whatever. But how can I best support the Lord's kingdom while I'm living, right now? What can I do now? And then also, how can I arrange my estate so that I can best honor God and leave a positive legacy that will be a blessing to others, maybe who are born after I pass, future generations. So those are things we want to look at as we go through today. Okay, now we're going to get into kind of the nitty-gritty. I said we're going to talk about the how. I haven't really talked about the how yet, have I? So now we're going to transition into 6 ways that you can give to a charity. And again, when I say charity, any nonprofit, including your church, all these techniques will apply to. And at the end of the program, I will mention to you that I'm available, if you want to talk with me, because I know we're going to run through this kind of fast. Some of these ideas may be new to you. If you need time, if you got follow-up questions, I'll be around a while afterwards. I'll be here tomorrow morning. But if you want to call me next week or next month, my phone number should be on the handout, at the top of the handout. That's my cell phone number, so you can text me, call me. I think my email is there too. So contact me if you would like to just talk through some of these ideas. Now, again, I'll I'll mention this again toward the end, but I want to assure you it won't be a pressure call. I'm not trying to sell you anything, and so be happy to talk with you. Here's the way I look at it. We're all Christians, right? We're trying to help each other through this. And if you give the children's home where I work, fine. But if you give it somewhere else, that's fine too. I want to help you with that process, okay? So that's the attitude I take toward it. I want to help a fellow Christian to make wise decisions with their money and resources. Okay, let's get into the first idea, the first of 6 that we're going to talk about today. And that is make a charitable bequest. Well, what's a bequest? Well, just the simplest term, a bequest is a gift that you give through your estate. You know, typically this is going to happen with a will or a trust. You know, you're going to say, I wish to give my e-bike to my daughter, or I wish to give my car or a house or whatever to someone else. So, you're going to pass along what you own to others, and you do that in the form of a bequest. So a charitable bequest, of course, as you might guess, is making a bequest to a charity. Again, even if you feel, well, I don't have a big estate to do anything amazing with, but we all have an estate. You may feel your estate is modest. Maybe you live on pretty much on Social Security, not much else, and you have a modest income, but you have a house, perhaps, or you have other belongings. Maybe you have a little bit in the bank. So we all have some type of an estate that we can work with. And I can tell you, too, that bequests are a very important part, a growing important part of the total revenue or donation stream that comes into a lot of nonprofits. At Mount Dora Children's Home, for an example, and I don't know if we're typical or not, or atypical, but we did the evaluation of this recently and looked at the last 3 years and kind of took an average, because when we talk about money coming in from the states, it can fluctuate a lot from year to year, because we don't know at the beginning of the year how much to expect that year. But it worked out that about 35% of all of our donations that came in from all sources were from the states. It's the largest single source. We have about 200 churches that support the Children's Home, including College Avenue here. We appreciate that very much. We have thousands, I guess, of individuals that donate to us on a regular basis, but estates are more than either of those, individual or church donation categories. So estates are pretty important to nonprofits of all type. And this shows on a more aggregate level, nationwide, bequests account for about 9% of all charitable donations to all causes nationwide, and that is put a dollar figure on about $39 billion a year that comes to charity through charitable bequests, through estates. So it's a big number. By the way, I can tell you too that that money for just looking at Mount Dora Children's, I thought, well, wow, what would we have done without that 35% of revenue? Well, we wouldn't be able to serve as many children or families. We would have had to cut back staff. There would have been some big changes we would have had to make without that money. So if you're thinking about giving to a Christian cause, with your will, for instance, then remember, it's important. It really is. It will be appreciated. It will be well used by the Brotherhood nonprofit that you choose to give it to. This verse from Ecclesiastes chapter 2 is a long one. I won't necessarily read all of it now, but you've probably read this at some point where Solomon talks about the futility of working hard our whole life, putting all of our effort into it, all of our training and education into working. We save, we're frugal, we're good stewards, and then what? It says here, and who knows, let me back up a line. I start at the beginning. I hated all the things I had toiled for under the sun because I must leave them to one who comes after me. And who knows whether that person will be wise or foolish. A lot of us have probably thought that, right? Somebody's going to inherit my money. Will they use it wisely, or will they blow it? Will they be? And some of us have situations where perhaps that your children, they have addiction issues, they have issues where they're not going to manage the money well, and so you're hesitant to give too much money to them, or in a way that actually might make their life worse. Others have children who are doing extremely well, and they don't really need your estate. So for a lot of reasons, People, even with children, will sometimes choose to give some or all of their estate to charity. One thing you can say about giving to charity versus giving to individuals is you have a lot better confidence that it's going to be used wisely. You give it to Camp Wiregrass, Faulkner University, Mount Dora Children's Home, College Avenue Church of Christ. You can bet Christian Home Church of Christ, you can bet that money is going to be used wisely. It's going to be prayed over, it's going to be thought through, and it's going to be used to the best knowledge. So giving a part of your estate or all of your estate, depending on what your situation is, to charity can make a lot of sense. You know, I just wish that more Christians would really take this seriously and consider leaving a portion of their estate to charity. You don't have to disown your kids. You know, you can give a small portion. You can give 10%. What you want to give, you know, to charity, and give the rest to your kids. Divide up however it makes sense for you. Everybody's situation is different, right? But if everybody, let's say, you know, everybody in this audience, everybody in this church, everybody in our brotherhood would do this, can you imagine? Can you imagine the money that would come in and what the potential for that would be? From the camp, do you think you could do something with some estate money coming in? I bet you could, couldn't you? Yeah, make improvements, make better programs, make it available to more kids. We can certainly do the same in our program. All of your brotherhood nonprofits can benefit and benefit a lot. So imagine we could put more missionaries in the field. You know, we could serve more of the needy in our communities, you know, the homeless, those who need food, et cetera, et cetera. We could serve more, you know, single mothers and orphan children, just on and on the list could go, and have the finest universities and have scholarships for all the kids from the church. We could do all sorts, you know, it's limitless what we could potentially do if every Christian would commit, you know what, you know, I love the Lord's church, I'm going to do something with my estate to honor God that way. I don't know what percentage is that do that, but sadly, I don't think it's really high. I just wish that could turn around, that we could change that culture. So, you know, just again, a question to ponder. And by the way, you may have already noticed there's some fill in the blanks. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that, but the handout you have, the first couple of pages is some fill in the blanks. And so we've gotten a little bit away from that, but not too far. So you're welcome to do that as we go. But maybe even in the margins or somewhere, you might want to make a note. You know, what can you do differently from this point forward? How can you honor God with your estate? Just make a note to follow up on that and talk about it. It all starts, of course, with having a will or trust. You got to put your instructions, your wishes in writing. You know, it's got to be legal, right? You can't just say, well, you know, I'd like for my church to get some of my estate. You've got to put it in writing or it's not going to happen. Sadly, nationwide, take the American population as a whole, I hope we're better. I bet in this room our percentage is higher. But nationwide, the majority of Americans don't even have a will, period. And you know that you can break that down, even those 65 and over, a surprisingly high percentage don't have a will. I mean, what are you thinking? I can understand when you're 35, maybe you know, you're not thinking about these things yet. You know, you don't expect to die. So, you know, you don't have a will yet. But I mean, hello, when you get to be a senior citizen, it's time to think about these things. So everybody should have a will. Because if you don't have a will, you can't put your instructions in writing. I say a will, again, a trust or some other similar document that you may have for that purpose. If you don't have a will, here's what happens. You know, you die, you leave an estate, and there's no will. The government steps in. A judge somewhere is going to decide who gets your money. Isn't that fun? Nobody wants to be in that situation, right? But lots of people are because they don't take time to make a will. And so you don't want a judge somewhere decide who gets your estate. And by the way, if you do that, and a judge makes a decision, guess how much is going to go to your local church? Zero, right? How much is going to go to Mount Dora Children's Home or Camp Wiregrass or wherever? Zero, right? Okay, they're going to look at some kind of formula, who's your next of kin and all this. You know, they're going to try to be fair, you know, under the law, but they're not going to consider, well, they went to such and such church for 30 years. Wow, you know, maybe I should give some of it to them. That's not the way a judge is legally allowed to operate. And so you need to put your wishes in writing. There are several ways you can do this, kind of structure this, if you will, through a will or trust. Honestly, these are pretty much common sense. We won't spend a lot of time dwelling on it, but let's just kind of run through the most common ways to make a charitable bequest through your will. The first one is to leave a percentage of your estate. You remember a few minutes ago I was saying, you don't have to just own your kids. You can give 10% or whatever amount you want to give. So you can choose a percent that you want to give, or by the way, even a dollar amount. If you say, well, I want to give $10,000 to charity XYZ, you can structure it any way you want, but just giving a certain percent makes a, I'll tell you why a percent is better than a dollar amount. If you give a percent, that can grow and shrink as your estate changes. Because maybe you set up your will when you're 65 or 70, and by the time you're 90 and passing away, your asset isn't as big as it was before, or maybe it's bigger, but it's probably shrunk during that time. So if you put a dollar amount there, I'm going to give $100,000 to charity, when your estate's only worth 80, well, that's a problem, so no one else is going to get anything. So it's better to put a percent, because that can shrink and grow with the size of your estate. So use a percent and not a dollar amount. Okay, there's a second way you can do this, and that is to give a child's share to charity. Let's say you have 3 kiddos. They're grown, of course, now, and all that perhaps, but you got 3 children that you want to remember in your will, of course. So normally, you'd say, well, each child gets 1/3. We all have a favorite, but we don't usually want to say that in our will, do we? That could cause some hard feelings going forward. So we're going to give 1/3 to each child, no matter which one we love the best. Let's be honest, we all have a favorite. Okay, but anyway. So what you might say, instead of I'm going to give 1/3 to each child, you're going to divide it 4 ways. And you pick one or more charities as kind of your 4th child. So instead of each child getting 1/3, each child gets 1/4, and then you still have money for charity. Honestly, the kids are going to be fine. They're still going to get a decent inheritance, and you have a chance to do something pretty powerful with your estate to help charity. So that's another way to go about it. Or you can give a specific asset. You have a rental house. You have your primary residence. You have a vacation home. You have a vehicle. It could be lots of things that you might want to say, well, a jewelry, piece of jewelry that's valuable, or some kind of collection, all sorts of things that might be sellable by a charity that you could list in your will as, I want a charity to get this or that. So you can mention specific assets. Again, you got to keep up with this, because if you say, I want them to have my Ford Mustang, and then before you die, you sell your Ford, well, you kind of mess that up. So you got to keep up with your will and keep it updated if you're going to list something specific of that type. But I suspect a lot of you here, if you really think about it, you may have raw land, you may have farmland, you may have rental properties, or it could be a more investment type assets, stocks, stock certificates, mutual funds, lots of different things, gold and silver, that you could choose to leave to charity, all or in part, up to you. I would suggest, if you're going to do this with an asset, talk to perhaps the development officer or the executive officer at the charity that you're considering, just to make sure it's something they would want or accept. 9 out of 10 times they'll say absolutely yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Occasionally there might be something that they don't want to accept. If you got a house that has some kind of a environmental problem under the soil, well, it's going to take hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix that, just to sell the house. That's probably not a suitable situation to give to charity. Another one that comes up sometimes is timeshare units. Now, Kathy and I have had a timeshare for over, nearly 40 years. Wow. Next year it'll be 40 years, won't it? Love it. It's at the beach. We go back all the time. But, I did buy it as an investment, and I'm not going to leave it to charity. And here's why charities don't want timeshare units. One, they're illiquid. You know what that term means? You can't sell them very easily. Now, some are, ours has actually a sales desk at the timeshare that you can do resales through them, but still it's not a guarantee that you're going to get a buyer. But charities don't want to get stuck with something they might not be able to sell. And guess what? While they're holding it, what happens? They become the owner. They have to pay the annual dues. They may have to pay the next assessment when a storm hits the resort property. So charities generally don't want. So there are certain assets charities might say no to, but 9 out of 10 times it's going to be an easy yes, and they'll be grateful to give. But if in doubt, talk to the charity first. Less often, but occasionally, there are situations where someone does choose to give their entire estate to one or more charities. And that's a wonderful thing when the shoe fits. Everybody's situation is different. This family, this is Bob Clayton. He lived in Orlando. And his really only connection with us was that his 2 children, shown in the photograph there, both attended our academy and had a good experience there. They were graduates of Mount Dora Christian Academy. Bob was a successful engineer, General Dynamics, for like 30 years, had certificates on the wall at his house, about his career and all his achievements. But unfortunately, he lived to a ripe old age, but his family did not. His wife and both children predeceased him, and there were no other heirs that he wanted to name from his family. No grandchildren in this case either. Neither of his children had children. So Bob wound up giving 100% of his estate, everything, to us. And that was one of those situations where, yes, we did an estate sale. We had to go through everything in his house, every drawer, every file cabinet, everything, to find what was there, what was of value, what had to be thrown out. It's kind of a sobering thing, humbling and sobering to have to do that. But that was his wishes, and we're very grateful for it. We sold his car in the driveway. We sold his house. We sold his driveway. And so that's his story. We had others like that. Again, that's not as common. Most of us have some heirs we want to leave some of our money to. But if the shoe fits, it's a wonderful, generous thing to do to help a charity in that way. Okay, let's move on to giving idea number 2. It's really very similar to what we just talked about. Lots of financial instruments have beneficiary clauses to them. And sometimes we don't think much about this. You go in to sign up for an IRA account or even a bank account, or you buy some life insurance, and it's just a 4-page application, and one part of it is who you want to name as your beneficiary. We don't really, let's see, I'll name blah. And we don't really give it a whole lot of thought. But here's the reality. Those beneficiary clauses take precedence over what's in your will or trust, assuming you have a will or trust. They're very important from a legal point of view. Let's say in your will you said, I want all my money to go to this person over here. But your IRA or your life insurance has another name on it. Who's going to get the money? The beneficiary on the IRA or life insurance policy is going to get that money at least, not the person you named in your will. So it's really important to keep up with, to give some thought to who you name as beneficiaries, and then also to make sure you keep that up to date. So beneficiary forms are something you want to take more seriously, perhaps. And here's again something I'd encourage you to, take your handout, kind of write in the margins on this. But think about, for a minute, in fact, let's pause just briefly for that. What do you have that has beneficiary forms in it? And what can you think of at home that, I need to pull that out and see. Who did that name 25 years ago as a beneficiary of that life insurance policy? I say it somewhat out of humor, but it could be if you remarry and your first wife is still on the life insurance policy. She'll get a good kick out of that if you die first when she collects your money. But so it's important to keep up with your beneficiary forms and keep them up to date. So maybe make a note in the margin. Think for just a minute what that might be. IRAs, how about annuities, 401ks, 403bs if you're educators, all sorts of retirement accounts. There's lots of things that have beneficiary forms. And by the way, it's not just bank accounts, and even sometimes securities, brokerage type accounts also have beneficiary forms, but they go by different names. There's, you may have heard of POD accounts, that's for payable on death accounts, or transferable on death accounts called TOD accounts. Banks use those kind of terminology sometimes. So if you're setting up a checking or savings account, they may ask you too, who would you like to have as a beneficiary? So you need to look at all those forms and make sure you keep them up to date. It's probably a good idea, do an update or inventory of these things every, 3 to 5 years or so, and see what may have changed with your wishes. Well, good thing about beneficiary forms too is they're really easy. Compared to some instruments, if you want to change your will and you had it done through an attorney, you may have to go back to the attorney and pay additional fees. It's a little more involved. Not saying don't do it, but beneficiary forms are beautiful because they're easy. With the larger institutions these days, they're usually online. You can go and look online, see who your beneficiaries are, and then just hit the edit button and change them. And so it's a simple thing to do. So I would encourage you to take a look at those. Okay, enough of that. Let's move to a whole different topic. And this is one that I'm almost sure somebody in the room can benefit from this. And you might be that person I mentioned earlier that could save anywhere from a few hundred to a few $1,000s a year on your taxes if you're qualified and able to do what we're going to mention here. And so it's a pretty interesting idea. It's beginning to catch on. I'm seeing more people do this in the church now than when I first started talking about it 3-4 years ago. But let's look at it. This is giving through your, let's see, what happened here? What did I do? Well, I guess that's the end of the program. Sorry. Should be one more slide. I'm not sure why that slide's not showing up. There's a slide there. It's not that one, though. Well, okay, we can talk through it. And it's actually on your handout, too. Let's see, let me get to where you are. At the very bottom of page 1, giving idea number 3, giving through your IRA. Let's kind of follow I'll make sure you get to fill in the blanks here. Individual retirement accounts, everybody knows what those are, right? Now, what I'm going to say applies to traditional IRAs, which most of us who are baby boomers at least, that's what we got, back then. They didn't have Roth IRAs then. I love, from a financial planner point of view, I'm a CFP and, have advised people in years past on investments. I love Roth IRAs for younger people who are, able to do that. Now, most of us who are older have traditional IRA accounts. So what I'm going to say applies to those people. When you turn age 73, which is when they're blank here, age 73, you must start taking money out of your IRA account. Because all those years that we worked and put money into the IRA, it was a beautiful thing, right? It was tax deferred. You could put money in, $2,000 a year used to be the amount, and then it kept growing and growing. I think it's $7,500 or somewhere around there now per year. It's much larger. But anyway, we put all that money in, didn't have to pay any tax on it from year to year. It's great. But now that we're retired, the IRS says, okay, our turn, we want to start collecting tax on your retirement fund. And so when you hit age 73, you must take out what's called a required minimum distribution, or RMD. And now I know this age is a little confusing, but I didn't set these terms, the IRS did. I don't know why it's different, but the next line there on your fill in the blank, at age 70 and a half or older, the IRS says you can begin to donate up to $108,000 a year. That's a big sum, right? Now, don't let that freak you out because you don't have to donate $108,000. You can donate $1,000 or $1,800, any amount that you want to take out. But you can take money from your IRA account and donate to charity. And you remember what I said about normally if you take money out of your IRA, it's always taxable? This is probably the only exception that I'm aware of. Who was the CPA in here? Not in the room right now. Okay, but yeah, okay. I think it's about the only exception, right? How you can take money out of your IRA without having to pay tax on it. So, and that's called making a qualified charitable distribution, or sometimes, in the business, if you talk to your CPA or tax guy, they call them a QCD, but it's a qualified charitable distribution. So that's a beautiful thing. You can take out, is that the slide? Okay, that's actually the next one. Yeah, good. Thank you. Keep it there. Yeah. So a qualified charitable distribution is a way to take money out of your IRA, but you have to be 70 and a half or older. Sorry for those of you who are much younger than that, but you'll get there one of these days. So mark that on your calendar. Something to think about when you turn age 70. There are advantages to getting older, right? You get discounts at drinks. Taco Bell, 50-cent senior drinks. So, there are advantages. So this is another one. When you turn 70 and a half, you can begin taking money out of your IRA, give to charity, and not pay tax on it. Now, let me state that a little more accurately. You don't take money out of your IRA and then give it to charity. You transfer it directly from the IRA to charity. There's a big difference. If you simply make a withdrawal from your IRA, get a check mailed to your house in your name, and then say, well, I want to take this money and give it to charity, nah, that won't work. you've got to have the money transferred directly from your IRA to the charity. And so make sure you follow the legal steps on how to do that. If you're working with a financial advisor or a tax person, they can certainly advise you to make sure you follow the rules. Otherwise, simply, if you're with Fidelity or one of those big companies, just call them. I mean, they'll walk you through the process. Most of them have a form on their website you can just download, fill in, and bingo, you can make it. It's really easy, not hard. But you do have to make sure you follow the rules if you want to get the tax break on it. Okay, so giving through your IRA is very efficient way to give. And again, anyone age 70 and a half or older can do this. Now, you remember I said RMDs, required minimum distributions, don't start to age 73. Well, here's the beauty of that. It kind of gets double sweet at that time, because at that point, when you have to take money out, whether you want to or not, the IRS says, well, okay, we're going to make you take the money out, but if you give it to charity, it still counts as your RMD. You met your requirement for required minimum distribution, but there's no tax to pay on it because you gave it to charity instead. So that creates some nice possibilities for you. Let's kind of look at how that can work. Let me back up just a slide, one amount though, and talk about this first, so this will make sense. In the old days, when we made a donation to charity or a church, it was tax deductible, right, for most of us. Nowadays, though, for most of us, that's no longer true. Now, if you're wealthier, have a larger estate, you still get that break, perhaps. But most of us can't overcome what's called the standard deduction. In a way, it's nice because it makes our tax completion much easier. We don't have to tally up how much you gave to Goodwill Industries and this and that. You don't have to worry about that anymore because you're not going to get a tax break anyway on your charitable donations. For a married couple age 65 and older, the standard deduction now is $32,300. So unless you're giving more than that to charity, and bless your heart if you are, I want to talk to you afterwards, but let me give you my card. But unless you're giving that much or more to charity and church each year, or you have other deductions that count, then you're going to bypass all that long form stuff. Remember all that? And have to keep all those records. Just going to say, forget that, and just do the standard deduction, just short form as we used to call it. Okay? And so most Americans now do the short form. And so they're not really getting a tax break on making charitable donations. But here's where the IRA can come in and help with that. Let's say, again, you're 70 or older. Sorry, this doesn't apply to everybody, but talk to your congressman because they set the rules on these things. But if you're 70 or older, and you have an IRA account, you might benefit by donating to charity from your IRA instead of by writing checks or giving online as many of us do now. And I'm going to go through an example of how that works. So consider giving through your IRA instead of writing checks. And by writing checks, I'm really talking about cash donations. Again, it doesn't matter if it's online or bank draft or how you do it. Okay, let's kind of make this simpler for you. Use this example. You have a senior, age 71, withdraws $15,000 annually from her IRA for living expenses. Maybe it's just for core living expenses, or maybe it's to have a more fun retirement. This is her travel money, her hobby money, whatever it might be. So this has been her practice. She takes out this amount each year, and of course, how much does she pay? How much of that $15,000 does she have to pay tax on? All of it, right? So you can figure what tax would be on $15,000. It adds up, doesn't it? It's fairly substantial. So it's going to be a few thousand dollars worth of tax probably for her. And at the same time, while she's doing that, her practice has been that she donates about the same amount. And I'm just making this simple. She might give more, might give less. So let's just keep it simple. Say she gives about the same amount to her church and some combination of charities each year. Okay? So all of her charitable deductions together come to about $15,000. As a result, she doesn't donate enough or have any other deductions, so she has to do the take the standard deduction and do the short form on her taxes. So she's paying several $1,000s a year on the money she takes out of her IRA. She's getting no tax break on her contributions. So let's flip it around like this. The solution for her would be she decides instead to start taking that $15,000 annually that she was taking out of her IRA. Let me catch up with myself here. Instead of taking it out of her IRA and using it for living expenses, use that money to give to charity. Same money. She's not giving more than she was before in this example. Same amount of money going to church and charities before, $15,000, but instead of taking it from her checking account or her income, she's taking it from her IRA. Now how much tax is she paying on that $15,000? None. She just saved a lot of money on taxes, and this isn't one time, it's every year that she does it. Then, of course, well, wait a minute, what about the living expenses and the travel and all that she was using from her IRA? Well, what about the $15,000 she was taking from her income, her checking account, to give to charity? Just flip it around and use that money for living expenses, because there's no tax break either way there, right? So it makes more sense to do that. Honestly, anyone age 70 or older who has an IRA are really looking at this hard. I can't think of hardly any reasons not to do it. Okay? So if you're not doing that, seriously consider it. Again, if you got a tax person you work with, talk to him or her. If I could be of help, call me and say, hey, go over that with me again. What'd you say? It sounded too good to be true. I'll be happy to walk through it with you, talk about it with you, and help you make a wise decision for you. But it's a great opportunity.
Today, she still gets that 32,000.
Standard deduction, right? Doesn't change that. If she gets that, whether she gives anything to charity or not, doesn't matter. Yes, so it still works. Again, I'll be around afterwards too. If you have any quick questions you want to just ask me today, be more than happy to talk with you that way. Okay, so giving through your IRA is a really neat, fun idea. It's a great way to do it. Now, again, we've really talked about two ways so far to give through your IRA. You can make a charity a beneficiary on your IRA account, or you can do these tax-favored contributions if you're age qualified for it from your IRA and save a lot of money on your taxes each year. Let's move, though, for the sake of time, to idea number 4. So we're about halfway through here with the different ideas. That is to give an appreciated asset. Now, we already mentioned this in terms of your estate, right? That you can give assets, houses, stocks, whatever, through your estate after you pass. But what about now while you're living? Why would you want to give something away while you're still alive? Well, it might be that it's highly appreciated. You know, when you have a house, property, stocks, whatever, that grow in value, that's a good thing, right? But as they grow in value, some will get locked in because you can't sell it. Because if you sell it, you got to pay what's called the capital gains tax. And that can be a lot of money. So a lot of people who are up in years say, well, you know, I'll just wait, hold this property till I die, even though I don't really want to, so it can pass to my heirs and get a tax break there, or give to charity, you know, through my estate. But you may really want to sell it now, may have other reasons why you'd rather do that. Or maybe it's just that you know a charity or church, you know, maybe the church is having a building fund or trying to pay off debt, and you really want to help them. But you don't have the money otherwise. The only thing you could do is sell that property. And so you can, here's the deal. You can give to charity, oh, sorry, we went too far. Better stick to my notes. To avoid paying the capital gains tax, you can instead donate that property to charity and pay, again, how much tax? 0, right? And so you wiped out the tax bill and you get the satisfaction of selling that property now. Can I give you another scenario that we see sometimes coming into our office? A couple, you know, when they were, I don't know, 50 or whatever, they bought some rental houses. Or maybe the husband was into that. And he bought rental houses because he was handy, he could fix them up, do all the repairs. It was a smart decision to make financially for them at the time. They, they got good income off of it, you know, from the rents. They got capital appreciation because the homes appreciated value. But now they're, you know, in their 70s. Health began to fail a little bit. Maybe the husband's passed. She's stuck with these rental houses and hates to get calls from the tenants. You know, she doesn't want to be a landlord anymore. And so it's a hassle for her. But homes are appreciated value, so she feels locked in. If I sell them, I got to pay capital gains tax and deal with all that. Plus, I don't even want to deal with a realtor. I don't want the hassle, you know, having to sell it. And, you know, they're going to probably make me fix it up, put a new roof on, whatever, even to sell it. So, well, Simple solution. Give it to charity. Literally, turn the title over to charity. Give it to them. And then you don't have to worry about from that day forward. We have to deal with the tenants. We'll probably sell it, of course, as quick as we can. But if there are repairs that are required to sell the property, we'll pay for that. We'll hire a realtor. It's off your hands. And you, by the way, get a really nice tax deduction because you gave a home that maybe you paid $150,000 for. In the past, it's worth $350,000 now. You're going to get a nice, sweet tax deduction for making that charitable gift of $350,000 home to charity. Again, it could be, well, I guess in that example, it would have to be one charity, but if you got multiple homes, we've seen that happen too. I'll give this home to this charity, this home to my church. I'll divide up. You can do that too if you've got multiple properties. There are all sorts of reasons why people might want to unload assets while they're still living. And so being able to give it to charity is a nice way to do that, to get the satisfaction of helping a cause while you're still living and kind of see the results of it while you're here, rather than doing it through your estate. Now, once again, this is a big decision, right? So you probably want to make sure you talk to your tax folks. You want to talk to your charity people. Make sure you're doing it right and that everything's going to go smoothly when you choose to make this choice. But it's a great way to help a charity in a larger way than perhaps you could otherwise. Okay, idea number 5 is charitable gift annuities. You may be familiar with the word annuity is used in a lot of different contexts. You may have a retirement annuity. You may go to some seminar where they're trying to sell you an annuity where you get income for life, during retirement. But a charitable gift annuity is similar to that, except that it is purchased through a charity instead of through an insurance company. So you may want to explore a charitable gift annuity that combines retirement income with making a charitable gift. Here's kind of how it works. With a charitable gift annuity, you make a lump sum donation to charity. You come in, typically, by the way, you can buy these $10,000 or more. Every charity has their own rules. But let's say, you come in with a lump sum of money. I'd like to buy a charitable gift annuity. What you do is you actually donate that lump sum to charity, and then in return, the charity agrees to pay you a fixed amount of income for the rest of your life. And if you're married, usually it's set up as a joint thing, so that as long as you or your spouse are alive, they will collect a fixed amount of income, guaranteed, by the charity to you. Obviously, you want to make sure it's not a fly-by-night charity, because the promise of paying you this money comes from the charity, but charities have been around a while and they have some experience with this, have done other annuities. It makes sense. I can tell you this is one product where we often get repeat buyers. I hate to use those kind of business terms with it, but we get folks who make one donation with a charitable gift annuity. They like it. They like the income coming in. 2 years later, they come back. I know we've had one lady on our books who has, I think, at least 5 charitable gift annuities that she's bought at different times from us. It's nice retirement income, and she has the satisfaction of giving to us, and of course gets a tax break that she may be able to use from the donation up front. The income will continue to him or her, or both, until their death. We pay quarterly, some pay monthly. Those things are sometimes to a large amount. You might be able to negotiate. If you give us enough money, we'll probably pay you monthly if that's what you want. But, so you're going to get the regular checks coming into your home or bank account as you prefer. Then when you pass, then the residual value in that contract passes to the charity. So in a way, we really don't benefit much until you do pass, but that's okay. That's the agreement we made with you. We're paying you now, and then you're going to, then return the favor later to us. When you buy a regular annuity through an insurance company, what happens to the residual value? It goes to the insurance company, right? And that's okay. Again, that's a contract. They're promising to pay you income. They're taking market risk and all those kind of things. If interest rates go up or down, they're guaranteed to pay you a fixed amount. So they're taking the risk. But when you pass, the insurance company gets whatever residual value from your original principal is left. Same way with us, the charity is going to assume that financial risk of being able to make the payments to you. And then when you pass, the charity gets the residual amount of your original principal versus you. By the way, Another thing that I worked for another one of our Brotherhood charities out in Texas for a while, and I mentioned this idea. They would say, "Oh no, we don't want to sell or offer any charitable annuities to anybody." So why not? Most charities do this because our experience, we did this several years ago, and our experience was the best way to make sure you're going to live a long, long life is to buy a charitable gift annuity from us. So they were having people living 95 and 100, and the charity was making zero off of them, maybe going in the hole because they had to keep paying them. It's all based on, you know what I mean by actuarial charts? It's kind of like Social Security or anything else. They were assuming, this formula of how long you're going to live. And so on average, we assume you're going to live to this age. And so if you live a lot longer than that, then, the payments we have to pay you are probably more than what we're ever going to collect. But that's a risk we take, and insurance companies take when they offer annuities to you as well. But charitable gift annuities are a really nice idea, particularly if you need additional retirement income and want to help a charity in the meantime. Here's just an example, a couple examples. First, you have a married couple here, age 80 in this example. You don't have to be 80 to do this, but they donate $50,000 through a charitable gift annuity. You get, of course, an upfront tax deduction for a portion of that amount, not all of it, but for a portion. And they receive annual income based on current rates of about $3,450 a year. That is on an interest rate comparison basis. Again, it's a little different. It's not it's a bit apples and oranges to banks, but just to compare like to a CD or something, that's equivalent to about 6.9%. So it's a nice rate of return on your money, and it's locked in and guaranteed for life. And then at death, the residual value goes to the charity. Again, in this case, though, at death would be death of who? The last spouse, right? So as long as either of them in that picture there are alive, they still get the check. Now, on the other hand, what if it's a single person, like a widow or widower, also age 80, donation amount $50,000, he or she's going to get more money, $4,050 per year. Why do you think it's more? It's only based on one life instead of two, right? And so the odds are, statistically, that she won't live as long. If you have two people involved, one of them's going to live a long time, perhaps. So anyway, so a single person will collect even more on annuities. But again, it works the same way. At death, the residual goes to the charity. The last idea I want to talk about today is a somewhat newer one. I mean, they've been around a long time, but they've really become popular over the past decade. And it's called a donor advised fund. How many of you, is this even familiar? How many of you familiar with the idea of a donor advised fund? Anybody? Okay, a couple of folks. Have you ever seen how, like really wealthy people, Vanderbilts, Fords, and more recent generation like Bill and Melinda Gates, they have these big charitable foundations set up, right? And they make all kinds of gifts to help this cause and that cause that they like through their charitable foundations. Well, setting up a foundation is kind of complicated and has a lot of expenses involved to it and annual tax reporting, et cetera, et cetera. But the average individual, like probably most of us in the room, maybe some of you are in the Bill Gates category. Again, I have a business card I'd like to give you after our presentation today. If you just raise your hand, if you're in the same income bracket of Bill Gates, I'll get a card to you. Anyway, most of us are just average Joes and average Janes, right? And we don't have that kind of money. But we might want to do something similar for different reasons. So you can set up kind of like a poor man's foundation, if you will, a charitable foundation. It's called a donor advised fund. So it's like having your own charitable foundation, but without all the hassles involved and all the expenses of a foundation. And really, I'm sure there's some benefits to foundations that aren't included here for ultra-wealthy people, but for most of us, a donor advised fund would serve the purpose. You don't have to have an attorney to set up. There's no annual tax reports to file separately from your own tax. And when you put money into a donor advised fund, you get a charitable deduction that year, the year you put it in. But here's where it's different. With the donor advised fund, you get the charitable donation benefit that first year, but then you can decide if you want to give it all out that year, you can, but you probably wouldn't set up a donor advised fund if you're going to do that. You can spread it out. Maybe you want to give a donation to church, like kind of a, what do you call that, where you set up a 3 or 5 year schedule, and you want to give to a charity, maybe they have a building fund or something like that, and you want to give to it over 3 to 5 years, okay, instead of all at once. You can split it up. You can give it to whichever charities you want and whenever you want. You can spread out over many, many years, actually. I'm actually kind of surprised they're as generous with that as they do. There's not even, I think with foundations, someone can correct me on this, not in my notes, but just I think the requirement is you have to give 5% a year, I believe, from a charitable foundation. They don't even have that requirement here. Now, most people do. Why would you set up a donor advised fund and never give money to charity from it? But you're under no requirement from year to year to give a certain amount from the account. So there are some benefits to that for certain people. It's not for everybody, but it's something you might want to consider if the idea of a charitable foundation has appealed to you for some reason. Here's another reason it might make sense. Let's say you're having a bad tax year. You need some deductions, and your accountant comes to you and says, you got to find some charities to donate to or something. So, well, it's December or whatever. I don't, I guess it'd be April in that case. I don't really know what I want to do right now. I don't know who I want to give to. Okay, set up a donor advised fund and don't worry about it right now. You got the rest of your life to figure out how you want to disperse this money to charity. But go in and set up a donor advised fund, put money in, and get your tax donation, tax deduction for it this year when you're having a need for it on your tax report. Maybe you sold some of those appreciated capital assets we talked about before, sold a business or something, and you need to offset that with a charitable deduction. So there are reasons why donor advised funds make sense. Just some of the benefits of those. I think we've gone over some of this, but it's typically you sign up for a donor advised fund through a large financial institution. Vanguard, Schwab, Fidelity are all big in this market. They have a separate division, actually. It's their charitable giving division that's set up and is qualified with the IRS to do this. It's not exactly giving it directly to Vanguard, but it's a Vanguard subsidiary that you give to, and they will manage this for you, do all the paperwork, et cetera. And you don't have to have an attorney. And then you just tell, let's say it's Fidelity. You say, Fidelity, I want you to send a check to College Avenue Church of Christ or to Mount Dora Children's Home. They will take care of that and send it out for you. You don't have to do anything else. And you can even personalize it. You can have, show an example here, the Robert and Sally Jones Family Charitable Trust. And by the way, it can even outlive you. You can set up successor beneficiaries. The donor advised fund can go on beyond your lifetime if you choose to do so. Don't have to, but you can. Okay, so there you have it. It's quick, I know, but 6 popular ways you can give to church and charities. And again, I know not everything here applies to everybody in the audience, but hopefully you found something that you can make use of. Now, which strategies make the most sense for you? Well, again, everybody's situation is different. I used to be I was a certified financial planner. I used to sit and counsel with people, about their investments and their financial picture. And one thing you learn pretty quickly, there are no two people alike. And there's no one investment or insurance product or anything that fits everybody, right? And if you got a company, by the way, that's trying to sell all the customers the same thing, run away, because they're not looking out for your best interest. Everybody's situation is different financially, and so you got to tailor it. It's the same way here. You got to look at what is your current financial situation. Which of these strategies would help you personally? What's the best use for your estate? Again, depending on your family situation, your children, all that, everybody's different, right? So there's no one-size-fits-all answer. And then what are your charitable goals? Do you have any dreams, like kind of legacy kind of dreams? I mean, is there something that, I wish with my estate I could do this or that. I really want to help this cause or that cause. What are your dreams? I encourage you to dream big. Why not? And see what you can do. So these are all things that go into the mix to reflect on, think about before you make a choice. And now on page 3 of your handout, by the way, if you flip over to that minute, it's the suggested questionnaire for developing a charitable giving strategy. These are questions, we're not going to go over here together in public, but these are questions for you to take home. If you're married, sit down with your spouse and go over them together. If you're not, look at yourself or have a trusted family member or a friend that can walk through this with you. Just kind of think about it. Questions to ponder and things to do, some action steps to take, like updating your will and your beneficiary clauses, and see what makes sense for you to work on. And then I mentioned that I'm available for consultation. This is a free thing. I'm not selling anything to you, trust me. I'm not going to charge you a fee for talking to me, sell you insurance policy. Please know that. I'm not in that business. I'm here to help. And I want to be of help to my fellow Christians. So if you would like to have a phone call or a Zoom session, whatever you want to do, or you can drive down the mountain door if you like. We could sit under the orange trees and talk. I don't know. But have to find some orange trees. There aren't too many left. We had that conversation earlier today. But their condos and houses are taking over the orange groves. But that's another story. But we can set up a time to talk and just kind of walk through, walk through your answers to some of these questions or questions that you generate after reading through this, or just from the presentation today, and anything I can help you with. Now, again, I'm not going to give you specific tax advice. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't write a will for you. But we can talk through some of these same steps we discussed today and help you out with that. And I'm sure there are good professionals here, maybe in your church, but certainly in your community, that you could be referred to by the elders or other trusted people that you know. So I would love to do that. It would be a pleasure for me to talk to any of you that feel I could be of help to you in that way. Again, as I said at the beginning of the presentation, my hope is that everybody here can take away something. I hate it when, I've been to like 2-day seminars before. We sit all day, seminars 2 days, and you walk out and nothing changes. You just go back to whatever you're doing before and like, that was interesting. Oh, I hate that. I hate one day I feel like I wasted 2 days, but I don't want you to be in that position today. You've come here. I appreciate you. You spent valuable time here with us this afternoon. You could have been doing something else. It's nice weather outside. You came here, and I appreciate that. And so I hope you can take away one or more actionable items from what we discussed today and make it of use to you. So I want to thank you, first of all, for coming today. I want to thank again the elders here for having me in to talk. I'll be back in the morning, Sunday school hour at 9 o'clock, right? 9 a.m. to talk about the children's homework. And then another gentleman from our organization, Sam Long. Some of you may know he used to be at Faulkner. He's a longtime Alabama preacher. He'll be here to do the sermon at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. So come back tomorrow morning if you can. And those of you from other organizations or other churches, we appreciate you coming out today as well and being a part of it. I want to just say, may God bless each of you to be good stewards, to be faithful stewards. I know you want to be. You wouldn't be here today if that wasn't on your heart. I find Christian people are the most generous people in the world. It's a humble way. I'm blown away sometimes by the donations we get at the children's home. I'm sure other nonprofits, churches have the same experience. You get checks from people, she's a school teacher or whatever. They're not wealthy people, and they dig deep sometimes to give. Christians are like that, aren't we? We want to help. We want to do good. And so I hope this presentation will help you.